Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. Every year, some NFL coaches enter their season walking tight ropes, and every year, coaches are fired for various reasons. This upcoming season is no different as we take a look across the league for a hot seat check now that the NFL draft has come and gone. For much more on this, let's go ahead and welcome in our own Tyler Sullivan. Tyler, it is so great to see you. Just to kind of set the stage for everybody watching at home, we have set our rankings for the head coaching seats by temperature here. 0 being cold, 1 being warm, 2 being hot, and 3 just being scorching hot. So let's go ahead and start here with Browns' Kevin Stefanski. He has 2 11-win seasons, won Coach of the Year after both of those campaigns in 2020 and 2023. However, Cleveland hasn't won a playoff game since 2020 and has finished 3rd or either 4th in the AFC North in 4 of 5 terms. He also hasn't been able to really maximize Deshaun Watson and his talent. So the list kind of goes on and on. Where are you at with Kevin Stefanski entering the season on the hot seat?
Yeah, I put it at 1. It's warm, but in reality, it really should be 0, because if you use this exercise and say, okay, let's just play the game that the Cleveland Browns do fire Kevin Stefanski, the next hiring cycle, he's probably the #1 head coaching candidate to be hired by any respective NFL team. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of what the Tennessee Titans did a couple of years ago with Mike Vrabel, where he got fired and not too long later, he was one of the top, if not the top head coaching candidate that next hiring cycle. So I think that would be the case for Kevin Stefanski, but given the way that the organization has gone over the last couple of years, you can't necessarily rule it out. Maybe they do decide to just kind of blow the entire thing up. You have ownership this offseason calling the Deshaun Watson trade and extension a big swing and miss. They're putting this roster on notice. They want to see what Kevin Stefanski can do. Of course, the draft was a little weird. You know, you come away with 2 quarterbacks, none of them coming within the first couple of rounds. So you're like, okay, is it really going to be Joe Flacco again? Is it going to be Kenny Pickett? Is Shador going to come out of the woodwork and actually be your starter despite his free fall in the draft? There's a lot of questions with this team, but overall, I don't think that the reason why this team has not lived up to its expectation, why it hasn't been more competitive in the AFC North, has been because of Kevin Stefanski. You noted this guy's a 2-time Coach of the Year. One of those times, if you remember, he started 5 different quarterbacks during that season, still made the playoffs. So, again, if the Cleveland Browns have issues, it's not because of their head coach.
Okay, but you're being too nice here, Tyler. You're starting us off just too sweet here. 3-14 season, you hit rock bottom, right? For an offensive head coach, you must figure out the quarterback situation. You got to get back competing in the AFC North. How much of Stefanski's future is really riding on the success of who will be the starting quarterback for Cleveland and really how successful they are? You look at this quarterback room, Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson, we don't expect him to play obviously next season, dealing with his injury. You got Kenny Pickett now after drafting Dylan Gabriel. You got Shador Sanders. He's got options here. Tyler?
Yeah, and I would agree with you that, you know, of course, it should be better. But the fact that how the draft played out, the fact that you took Dylan Gabriel late on day 2, you somehow still ended up with Shador Sanders in the 5th round at 144 overall, that to me signals the way that they operated their quarterback situation at the NFL draft. Sure, they came away with 2, but the way in which they brought those quarterbacks in, that suggests to me that this is a team that's looking for their quarterback in 2026. It's not a team that is saying, hey, we drafted Shador 5th overall after we traded down with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We found our quarterback. If they did that, I'd say, okay, Kevin Stefanski, you are put on notice. You need to produce. You have a quarterback now that we took high, and let's see what you can do. The fact that they still got Shador Sanders, okay, it's interesting, but again, they got him in the 5th round. They got Dylan Gabriel late on day 2. To me, this signals a team, an organization that's really playing for 2026.
Yeah.
And if they're looking at their head coach saying, okay, listen, play out this string, build up a core, but again, we're looking at 2026.
All right, we'll leave it there. Let's move along here. And I do want to get to a name that I don't think we hear mentioned as much in terms of the hot seat coaching topic, because we're all not sure if Zac Taylor is actually a good coach or if he actually has just a benefit of having one of the league's best quarterbacks in Joe Burrow to make him look good when things don't go right.
Yeah, you're right, and I put him at a 2 here because, again, it's getting there. We're starting to look at Zac Taylor a little sideways now because this is a team that, as you noted, has Joe Burrow, has Jamar Chase. This should be in a Super Bowl window. We shouldn't be talking about a team that's missed the playoffs the last couple of years because of poor starts early in the season. They started 0-3 last season. That was their 3rd straight year where they started 0-2 or worse. You specifically go to last season, they played the Patriots in week 1. If you just win that game, and we found out what New England was throughout the season, they were a bottom 5 team in the NFL. You just take care of business out of the gate in week 1 where you have months to prepare for that specific opponent. This team is in the playoffs. We're not talking about a 5-0 run that came up just short at the end of the year for Cincinnati. We're talking about a 5-0 run that got them into the postseason, and then who knows, because you have Joe Burrow. So for me, this is all about Zac Taylor. This is an offseason where, again, they extended themselves to bring in or keep Jamar Chase on a record-setting contract. They were able to keep T. Higgins on a lucrative contract. We'll see what happens with Trey Hendrickson. I still have my questions about this defense, but this is a team that should be in the Super Bowl conversation, right, not whether or not they can make the playoffs or not.
Yeah, you mentioned the additions and extensions, rather, with Chase and T. Higgins there. He has a 46-52-1 head coaching record. If Cincinnati misses the playoffs for the 5th time in 7 years under Taylor, is he gone?
Yeah, I think so. And again, you've already seen the writing on the wall a little bit when you're getting rid of defensive coordinators, you're moving things around, you're spending a lot of money if you're ownership. The next step, if you still continue to fail to meet expectations, is to move on from the head coach.
All right, we'll see how that all plays out. Let's get to the Colts here. Shane Steichen enters a crucial 3rd season with the Colts. Where is he on your hot seat radar?
He's at a 2 for me. And again, I think that this is more indicative of what we could see with the Indianapolis Colts just blowing the entire thing up. I don't know if it's specifically about Shane Steichen, but it could be more about Chris Ballard, the GM. And typically when you fire a GM, the head coach is not long for his job either. And you look at what Chris Ballard has been unable to do over the course of his tenure, more specifically the Anthony Richardson draft. Number 4 overall, it just hasn't lived up to those expectations to the point where you're now going into free agency openly saying we're going to have a quarterback battle, and that is Daniel Jones. I was on HQ earlier this week talking about the Colts, and I go, listen, if Daniel Jones wins this job, is that a win for the organization? Sure, it's a win for that specific free agent signing, but what that tells you is that the guy that you tapped to be your franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future in Anthony Richardson, it blew up in your face. We saw it last season with the benching, then coming back. It just seems messy from top to bottom in this organization. So yes, by proxy, Shane Steichen is on the hot seat, but I still think he's a decent head coach. Defensively, this team had issues last year. They fixed that in free agency. But overall, if this team fails to meet their expectation in 2025, I think this is a cleaning house type of move, not just the head coach.
Yeah, it seems like his future is really riding on the uninspiring situation that he has in his quarterback room right now, which is just kind of unfortunate. You feel bad for the guy, but you can't not be excelling on your side of the ball as an offensive coordinator. Let's go ahead and get to the Giants here. Brian Daboll, possibly the hottest, most scorching seat right now among all the head coaches. What is the leash, though, for Daboll? If the Giants have a slow start to the 2025 season, does he even finish the season?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I put him at a 3 here, too, because he's the hottest seat in the entire NFL. And you referenced it earlier when you were just talking about Shane Steichen. If you're an offensive-minded head coach, well, you better be good on offense. And the New York Giants have not been good on offense over the last couple of years. I think they're averaging around 15 points per game. They've been bottom 3 in the NFL for the past 5 years in terms of scoring. That can't happen. I know that the quarterback situation's been up and down for the New York Giants, but you simply can't have that happen. And then to answer your question is whether or not this could be an in-season firing, I thought that before the NFL draft. I thought that there was an opportunity where you have Russell Wilson, you have Jameis Winston. If things don't go the right way, then we could see an in-season firing for Brian Daboll. Now that we're after the NFL draft and they traded back up to go get Jackson Dart at the back end of the first round, I think that buys Brian Daboll at least the entire 2025 season. Because what he could do is, if this team is not living up to what they hope it could be with Russell Wilson, who is the presumptive week 1 starter, then you can make the change to the young quarterback somewhere during the season, and you could try to salvage the year and your job with Jackson Dart. Let's just say it's the final month of the season. They decide to try to, change things up, have an eye towards the future. If Jackson Dart shows you something, if you go on a little bit of a positive run, almost reminiscent to what Bryce Young did in Carolina last year, that may buy Brian Daboll a little bit more time. But again, it's risky.
That's an interesting point that you bring up. By the way, Giants have been one of the league's lowest scoring clubs over the last 2 years, ranking 30th and 31st in points back in 2023 and 2024. To your point, what's your opinion here, Tyler, on if he has lost the locker room? Because I think he earned a lot of trust, right, with his first season when they went 9-7, finished with a playoff appearance. Do you think he still has hold of this locker room in New York?
For now. I mean, it's one of those scenarios where, again, winning is the ultimate cure-all in the NFL. If you start off the season on a sour note in Russell Wilson, that whole experiment isn't working, this thing could unravel really fast. But if you play hard defensively, you bring in Abdul Carter, obviously that's going to be a huge boost to this defense. If you find some sort of identity, then sure, you're going to be able to keep things intact a little bit. But if you continue to lose games, and this division is not for the faint of heart. You had 2 teams in this division in the NFC Championship a year ago. Dallas is going to get healthier with Dak Prescott back under center. It's going to be difficult. But again, if you just remain competitive and just notch a win or 2 early, that could help you. But if it goes the other way, this could really fade fast for Brian Daboll.
Yeah, the division and the fan base, they don't play up there in New York. Let's get lastly here to Mike McDaniel of the Dolphins. As Miami's head coach, 42-year-old has a solid 28-23 record, but the team is 0-2 in playoff games with him at the helm. Where do you stand with Mike McDaniel?
Yeah, I put it at 2, but I really thought about putting it at 3 because I think that this is one of the sneakier ones in the NFL. I think you say, okay, well, no, Mike McDaniel's a decent head coach, high-flying offense. The problem has been the health of Tua Tagovailoa and his lack of availability. Well, that's part of the conversation, but you look a little bit deeper at Mike McDaniel in terms of his statistical output against playoff opponents. It's been 4-14 over the last couple of years. Here it's 24-9 against teams that are not in the playoffs. So I look at that and say, ooh, are you a good head coach, or you just beat up on bad competition? Again, 1-10 versus teams that were entering the game with a winning record over the last 2 seasons. You're 18-5 in those other games. I just wonder, hey, is this a coach that beats up on bad competition and really struggles when it gets later in the season? A lot has been made about, can this team play in cold weather? Can Tua Tagovailoa play in cold weather? I don't think it's necessarily that, even though there's evidence to suggest it. I think as we go later in the season, and by the weather getting colder, you're just playing tougher competition. You get into the playoffs, it's tougher competition. And what we've seen so far from Mike McDaniel, he hasn't been able to answer that bell no matter who's been under center for him.
Yeah, it seems like there has been a drop-off ever since all the praise from his press conferences, everything that comes out of his mouth, his wizardry offensively. So we will see how this all plays out in Miami for Mike McDaniel. Just because we have a little bit of time here, Tyler, any honorable mention? I was kind of surprised Mike Tomlin wasn't on this list for you.
Yeah, no, Mike Tomlin, I think, is going to be fine. Again, he's now the longest tenured head coach in North American sports, right? With Greg Popovich stepping down, he's going into year 19. The questions, of course, will be what the Pittsburgh Steelers do at quarterback. We're still sitting, it's crazy. It's May 3rd. It's the Kentucky Derby, and we still don't know who their quarterback is going to be in 2025. We're still waiting on a decision from Aaron Rodgers. The fact that they kind of kicked the can down the road in terms of bringing in a quarterback via the draft, of course, they brought in Will Howard late, but they didn't take a quarterback high in this draft. You go, okay, they must be pretty confident that Aaron Rodgers is on his way to the Steel City, but I would be cautious. I would be cautious if I were Mike Tomlin, because we've seen everywhere Aaron Rodgers has gone as of late, he kind of leaves a burning house behind him. So I would be nervous if I were Mike Tomlin putting all of my eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket, but this is someone who's been entrenched with the organization for as long as I can remember. Again, going on year 19 with the team. He's never been under 500. So it's hard to make a case that says Mike Tomlin is on the hot seat, but if this team if the bottom really falls out from under them, then I mean, maybe we start having the conversations, and when we're back here in 2026, then maybe we'll start talking about Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, maybe a next year problem, but good news, Tyler, we'll have stuff to talk about on May 3rd in the NFL. We love that for us. Great stuff, as always, from our own Tyler Sullivan. A lot of names, have a lot of pressure as we are just a few months away from the start of the NFL season. You can catch all the latest NFL news. We'll have NFL highlights and scores throughout the course of the season right here on CBS Sports HQ. It's all here, and it's all free.